This episode is presented by Physiovélo because in ultramarathons, having the right cycling posture makes all the difference. Should I call you Jai or should I call you Jérémy?
As you wish.
Jérémy.
Yeah.
So, Jérémy, aren't you frustrated by those extra 3 minutes and 28 seconds?
No, not at all. On the contrary, listen, having done more than 6 minutes, faster than the 3-hour mark in the marathon, I didn't expect to succeed so well at my challenge, which was to run under 3 hours. So, no, maybe it's those 3 minutes and 28 seconds that I remember most from the race as well.
No frustration, that's what matters.
No, I got a big cramp in my hamstring at the 41st kilometer. So probably right at 2 hours and 50 minutes, my body went, oh, but no, there was no frustration at all. It was an extraordinary experience. Do you run at all?
No, I don't run. People who follow the podcast talk about it regularly. I've had guests who explain stride to us how to run. I've tried running, like every cyclist does in the winter, or when you're in a bit of an off phase, you tell yourself, I'll go for a run a bit. But I never managed to find it. When you ride a bike, we call it spinning your gears. That is pedaling, but in a fairly comfortable way where you're moving forward and you feel good. I've never found that kind of stride in running. I've tried, but I've never found that stride. So people often tell me, yes, but that's because you run too fast, you need to walk. Yes, but I don't actually want to walk. I want to run, you see. And people tell me to walk, so I don't understand. And later, over time, no, but I would like to one day. I'd really like to do what you just did, actually, to become a marathon runner. That must be nice.
Once again, I think, and I say this more and more, I say that running is an extreme sport. I think it's an extreme sport. It's a sport that's really tough with
the impacts you mean?
Exactly. It's so intense. And precisely, once again, I love cycling and I consider myself a cyclist, but I'm not a great cyclist in terms of power or speed. I'm more of an endurance guy, so it's fitting that you and I are having this conversation. But I do think there's still a certain comfort you can find on the bike, especially, my God, once again, I say all this in big quotation marks because sometimes you really end up in discomfort. Whereas with running from the very first kilometer.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Because cycling is maybe a supported sport.
Exactly.
So then after a certain number
of hours, you
get sore, you start to feel aches and pains. But I see what you mean about the impact from the very first kilometer.
That's it. That's more like it.
He'll explain to us how you prepared, exactly. A few days later, as we're recording this, are you still riding the endorphin high? The marathon was on Sunday. It's Wednesday. Have you come down a little bit from the euphoria of having done it after all the preparation you're going to tell us about? Or has it, faded away? Are you already thinking about something else?
I'm trying to focus on not letting that high fade too quickly. I find that it goes away fast.
You have to enjoy it a little?
Yeah, you have to enjoy it a little because, I'm a challenge guy, I'm a project guy. So pretty quickly it's like...
You'll start something.
Yeah, I had just arrived, thank you. I still had the medal around my neck. I hadn't even taken off my running shoes. My dad was like, I guess he's already thinking about the next project. I was honestly doing my absolute best to concentrate on remaining on that high, to fully appreciate and celebrate the moment.
It's true that we don't savor it. We don't take the time to enjoy it.
That's it.
How much preparation time?
Since January. January, February, March. About 3 months.
Yes, so there still has to be a basic level of fitness because to prepare for a marathon in 3 months, you really need to have the foundation to take on that kind of project.
Exactly. And then I also changed coaches. So that meant my specific training really started more in February. So it was a preparation of, let's say, 10 to 12 weeks, which is relatively quick. But after that, I still came in, last year I did a lot of trail running, a lot of ultras. I came in with my endurance base already there. It was more a matter of working on speed. That was the part that stressed me out the most because it's a type of training I'm less familiar with. It's a whole new set of sensations for the body. Plus, there were training sessions where I couldn't hit the intervals as planned or at the intended pace. That never used to happen to me. In trail running, it's like go up for half an hour in zone 3 and you're like, oh yeah, let's go. Then, oops, 3:15 per kilometer. I just can't hit it because it's super fast. That was another thing that made it so, in my mind, the sub 3 was by no means a given, but the fact that it happened I feel like, to answer your question, I've come down a bit. I can also see it in my energy levels. It's like in the first few days, I had a lot of energy after the marathon, but now to come see you this morning, I had to set my alarm.
All right. Jérémy, what I suggest is that we rewind the story a little, go back a bit, and you tell us where you come from and how your childhood was. Was there already running? Was there already cycling? So tell us where you come from. And Jérémy Petit, how do Nicole and Yvan manage Jérémy?
You're really good. Yes, my parents, Nicole and Yvan, we grew up in Montreal, on the south shore of Montreal in Quebec. So I'm the middle child. I have an older sister and a younger sister. So I think that's maybe where my sense of humor comes from. For me, basically, my profession, first and foremost, is stand-up comedy. So I didn't bicker or fight with my siblings. I had sisters, so to get a reaction out of them, I think we laughed a lot at home. Sports have always been a part of my life. Like any good young Quebecer who grew up in the 1990s, my sport, first and foremost, was hockey. So I was obsessed with hockey all throughout my childhood. That was my identity. Up until the middle of my teenage years, when I got injured and couldn't necessarily play in the categories I had hoped for, I would have had to change schools to keep going as well. My mother thought my education was more important, and I really loved my high school, which was an amazing school. I would have had to switch schools to play more hockey. So at that point, I quit hockey. And what I find special is that the year I stopped playing hockey, I was 15 years old. The first thing I did at school was sign up for the cross-country team. So I started trail running, which has become, now I'm 34 and it's my sport. But as I'm telling you this, I get goosebumps.
There were already things falling into place back then.
Exactly. That's what I find curious, that without even realizing it, no one around me was doing it. But instinctively, as soon as I had a bit more time to do more sports or try another sport, I turned to running and I loved it. And I had a certain potential, but since it wasn't my sport, and in my mind, I also think I didn't know it was really a sport I could have pursued at a higher level. No one really pushed me or my parents supported me, but it was when I was younger, I played American football, and also a little bit when I was older, I did boxing. I was still into multiple sports between the ages of 15 and 19, 20 years old. Then after that, I really got into gym mode. So I was just training at the gym simply. And then comedy really took off for me. I really focused on the stage, on stand-up. Then after that, I had the chance to do television in Quebec. That allowed me to work, to sell tickets, to fill my show venues. And quickly, sports came back into my life. Sports never really left. But for a long time, I missed the competitive side of sports a bit. It was something that I felt had left my life rather quickly. And finally, in 2020, I started running again, really slowly. And I had already been a volunteer before at an Ironman in Quebec. And I never thought I would do an Ironman in my life. That
never appealed to you because in your path, there's no cycling.
There's no cycling. There's no cycling at all. Absolutely none. I don't know anything about cycling. I had a bike when I was a kid, but that's about it. I had a bike in Montreal when I lived in Montreal just to get around a bit, but nothing more. And then eventually I started running. Then one day by chance at Lac Saint-Jean, which is a region in Quebec, and it's beautiful. There's a national park on the edge of the lake. And I went running there and it was magical. It was the first time, like you mentioned earlier, the pleasure of running without pain. It was the first time it happened to me where I was running and I didn't want it to end. It was just that nice. And so I ended up running a half marathon. I ran 21 kilometers that day. And it was that day that the door opened in my mind. That was in 2021. It opened up in my mind. That day, I told myself that I know I'm going to run a marathon in my life. After that, I came across a video on YouTube about ultra trail. So a guy who was running a 100-mile trail race.
100 miles right away. So it's not the...
No, that's it. But when I came across that, I was like, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do.
That's what I want. That's often a trigger.
And at that point, I didn't know that existed. I can't believe I didn't know that existed. So then I found myself a coach and signed up for my first 50-kilometer trail race, which I did in 2022. And once that was done, I had another TV contract in the fall. So I didn't have a lot of time to do another race. So I decided to sign up for an Ironman in 2023 in Quebec, in Tremblant. So the full Ironman. And when I signed up, I didn't have a bike. And I didn't really know how to swim very well. I was really just a runner. But you
Just wanted to be at the starting line, really. Just wanted to experience it, to feel what it's like.
Yeah, and also I think I put myself in a position where I forced myself to learn something. I think that was the intention. It was to say, hey, I won't be particularly good, but I'm going to put myself.
To develop skills that I don't currently have.
Exactly. I want to force myself to be a student and to take responsibility. I have no choice but to learn. So I borrowed my dad's bike. And that's when I got started. I did a few bike rides. Then after that, in the winter, I bought my own bike. As soon as I got my bike, it was winter in Quebec. I booked myself a solo trip to California to go train. That's where I had my first fall because I wasn't able to turn the...
Barry's case, the famous fall at the intersection.
Exactly. All of that alone. I didn't know. I had a triathlon bike. I was climbing in Panga Canyon. I didn't know it wasn't necessarily made for climbing. I knew nothing. I didn't know anything.
You learned it through experience.
Completely. And I didn't know what was cool or not. Do I have the right to wear socks of this color? I knew nothing. There
are codes. There are codes. Careful.
Exactly. I didn't know anything at all. I was just a guy who was full of determination. And what I loved about cycling is that it reconnected me with the child I used to be. The first feeling of freedom I ever had as a child was when I got my bike. My bike, it was the first time I ever went off on my own.
It's true that it's often synonymous with freedom because it's a means of transportation. You move it forward with your own physical strength and you decide whether to go faster or slower. Turn right, turn left, stop, keep going. I completely understand. You're talking about childhood. Let me go back to that for a moment. Does this connection with nature come from your parents' profession and the vineyard? Is that what it means to be connected to the land for you?
I think so. My parents bought the vineyard in 2005, so I was 13 years old, something like that, maybe a bit younger.
So adolescence.
When we were younger, we had a cabin in the woods. That too, when I thought back to that before the marathon, I was like, oh, as a child, I used to run around the lake. But no one told me, do this. It was just something I did. And it was out in nature. And after that, yes, my adolescence, I spent my summers working in the fields, working in the vineyard, outside rain or shine. I also think there's something about the ultra mentality where there's patience,
peaceful solitude,
resilience. When you work in the fields for 2 whole months every day as a hyperactive teenager, and you have to calmly prune the vines every day for weeks, I think there's something about that that helped me build a kind of patience.
To develop it.
Exactly. Truly. And they share a deep, lifelong love for the land, for simply being outside in nature, and for truly enjoying all kinds of different weather conditions. I'm a big fan of heat, personally. I love the heat.
You're a Quebecer.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of heat, especially when you know what kind of winter you've just come out of. But maybe it's not even over yet. It's
hell.
It's unbelievable this year.
It's hell. And honestly, sometimes I'm like, I don't understand how I'm a Quebecer because I really have a hard time with winter.
This year, it's tough.
This year, I found it really terrible.
I have contacts over there, of course, but yeah, it's really, really long this year.
Long.
6 months. It started 6 months ago.
It doesn't make sense. It's one of the reasons why, coming to spend some time in
Europe,
it sped up the spring for us. It really, really did us good.
Earlier, you were talking about hockey, about that competitive spirit. It's true that the last time I was there, I think it was in October last year, I went to see the Canadians at the Bell Centre. Amazing. What an atmosphere. I had an extraordinary 3 hours. It was your childhood dream at some point to say, I want to play for this club.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. Yes, it was.
You still follow them?
More than ever. Because for me, I've often said that I'm more a fan of playing than a fan of watching. So I didn't necessarily know the players. I didn't necessarily know the stats and all that. When I was a kid, obviously, I knew all the players and everything. After that, there was a long period when the Canadians were more or less interesting to watch. So I focused on something else. But now, this year, they're particularly good. And it's the first time in a very long time that they've been this competitive. So you caught them in a good season.
I loved it. And the whole experience, it's not just the game, it's the whole experience. You arrive an hour and a half, 2 hours before, you get something to eat. There's all the stuff going on around. Honestly, I really had a very, very good time. I also saw, regarding your studies, you mentioned your studies, I saw that you attended the National School of Humor.
Yes.
So was that already your intention? Was that really what you wanted to do later on? Had you already decided to be? Because I've had a lot of ultra marathoners on the podcast. You're an ultra comedian.
Exactly.
By the way, on Instagram, I invite you all to subscribe. So already several years ago, you had this desire to do this job.
Yes, it was the stage. I remember the first time I saw someone do stand-up. I was 10 years old, and I remember being physically turned upside down afterwards. And I didn't understand why. I was a child.
It really changed something inside you.
It absolutely and completely rattled me to my very core.
Who was it?
It wasn't even a famous comedian. It was a student in my sister's year.
He probably changed your life. You know, that's what I call it. Life crossroads, sometimes where certain encounters spark things. And the direction you want to give your life will be different after that encounter.
Exactly. Completely. I remember the moment. And it really was the stage. It's really about being alone on stage and telling jokes. My favorite people have always been funny people. But I've always been drawn to that, fascinated by it. And so all through my teenage years, it was always in the back of my mind. It wasn't as well known as it is today. How do you start? There are comedy clubs everywhere. There are podcasts. We know how it works in comedy. Back then, it was less clear. We didn't really know how it all started. But I was fascinated. And at 16, I did my first show at my high school's year-end gala. And that was another moment that changed my life.
Because you talk about funny people. But I watched your video where you get back on stage in January and you can see there's a huge amount of work behind being funny. You see, there are people who are funny, who are naturally funny. And there are people who are funny because there's a huge amount of work behind it. And then it's the gestures, the work that makes it funny. The show is funny. So those are two different things as well.
Yes, there's the quick wit.
Might be comedians who, outside of their act, aren't funny at all.
Exactly. For me, there are people in my life who aren't comedians, who are much funnier than I am in everyday life. On the other hand, making people laugh on stage, you're the one who creates the whole context. Whereas in a conversation, someone says something, everyone already knows the context. You can just say a line. That's quick wit. But after that, it's a matter of writing and also of listening, of understanding how, personally, I always like to make jokes that bring together the audience I'm speaking to so that everyone understands. You know, tonight I'm performing here in Paris. Well, I want to make sure that everyone understands when I speak. I don't want to put on an accent, but just make sure not to say any. You know, last week in Marseille, I did a show and then a comedian came up to me afterwards and said, yeah, dude, here, the expression t'es bon doesn't mean the same thing. And I didn't know that. Okay, you're like, oh.
Shit, yeah, of course, if you say we're going to pull your log, you know, for example.
That's it?
I'm not sure that he.
Right.
Yes, that is correct.
I see. So that's it. There's work to do, but it's always been. I dreamed about that. I think that looking back, when I think about the teenager I was, it's obvious that I wanted to be a comedian. I think it took me a little while to admit it to myself, but at 18, I told my parents that's what I wanted to do, and that's what led me to go to the National School of Humor, which is the only one in the world in Quebec.
Before we continue with the episode, a few words about our new partner, Physiovélo. If you're an endurance cyclist, you know just how much your position on the bike directly affects your comfort, your power, and your ability to sustain a ride. Physiovélo is the go-to reference for postural analysis and the management of cycling injuries. Since 2021, the Physiovélo team has been training physical therapists and physiotherapists all over French-speaking Europe. You can find a certified Physiovélo professional near you directly on the directory map on their website. And if you want to deepen your own knowledge and specialize in postural analysis, they also offer e-learning courses accessible from anywhere in the world. With the code REST15, you get 15% off their entire catalog of online courses, of course. The link is in the description of this episode. Physiovélo, because in ultra-distance cycling, having the right posture makes all the difference.
So you have writing classes, you write sketches, and then you work with directors. And that meant I was lucky enough to be accepted as soon as I auditioned. And then when I graduated from comedy school, I was 21 years old. I started working full-time in comedy.
So it's true that you explained there's a lot of work involved. For me, if there were one character trait I would highlight, it's courage. I think you have to be extremely courageous to face an audience. I find that incredibly brave.
I think there are a lot of people. I once heard someone say that the greatest fear humans have is speaking in front of other humans.
It's speaking in front of
other people. I understand why people associate that with courage. After that, for me, there's something very... If it doesn't work, it doesn't actually hurt. It's your ego that gets hurt.
Yeah, you're not going to die just because people laugh at you.
Exactly. It's like, I get what you mean. I think when I was younger, I took it more personally. These days, I don't necessarily see myself as brave for getting on stage, but I understand that it's risky and scary, but it's a vulnerable position. I think that's often what interests me. It's the same thing with trying to run a marathon in under 3 hours. You put yourself in a vulnerable position. You tell people, I'm going to try this. And when everyone knows about it, well, a comedian who gets on stage, that's what it is. You're introduced as someone who is supposed to make people laugh.
That is absolutely true. That is very true. Whenever you go to a live event where you already know someone is going to perform improv, you definitely do expect them to make you laugh.
Exactly. So it's as if you yourself set expectations that are a little higher for yourself. But I like that position of saying, okay, your expectations are going to be there, but I'm still going to try to surpass them. And honestly, no one has higher expectations of me than I do myself. So I find that when I was younger, it took all my courage, because when you're 21 and you want to be a comedian, you don't know anything, you know nothing about life, you don't even know who you are, and you're trying to make strangers laugh. It's a strange position to be in. Today, at 34, I'm like, hey, this is going to be fun. We'll give it a try. I'll tell my story.
The confidence today.
Exactly. A little more.
You know the way.
But on the other hand, I don't want to say that it's easy either. I don't want to say that it's easy, because I think that when I look at it, my favorite stand-up comedian is Romain Fressinet. And Roman is extremely brilliant, very human, very connected to himself as much as to others, and it shows in his art. So for me, stand-up is not something trivial, but now it takes me less courage to get on stage than it used to.
At what point does it take off for you? At what moment? So we've talked about it. You go to this school, they teach you the basics, let's say, of the profession, but not everyone succeeds. At what specific moment? For you, when does it start taking off? Is it an important meeting? Or is it you pushing things forward?
After graduating from the National School of Humor, things happened quickly. I really operate through challenges or objectives. Just like with running back then or with stand-up, when I graduated from the School of Humor, my goal, I always set goals that I can control. So at first, my first goal was to do 2 shows a week. And pretty quickly, I was able to do that. So then I was like, okay, I want to do 3 shows, 4 shows, 5 shows a week. And pretty quickly, it became about hosting a comedy night. So every week on Monday nights, I would get on stage at the same bar in Montreal. And people would pay $8 and we would test out jokes. And back then, I didn't think that I had succeeded. But now when I think back, that's when it became the trigger. Yes, because that made me responsible. Every Monday night at 8:30, I would get on stage with new jokes. Week after week, it forced me to write. It forced me to make mistakes, to not tell good jokes, to get comfortable, to structure yourself as well, to find your style. All that. Because after 2 or 3 weeks, you can play at being something. After a month, 2 months, and then people come back every week, you can't pretend to be something anymore. Your personality comes out, your style comes out, whether you want it to or not. Becoming comfortable with silences. When I started, I spoke very fast. I spoke loudly. I shouted. That's probably also related to stress. Absolutely. Definitely, yes. It's to fill the emptiness. We tend to talk, Exactly. I would rush to my jokes. That's good. Yes. So now I've learned to be calmer. To build them up. Yes. And also I find that when you see an artist on stage, when you see someone who's confident, you as a spectator, you feel confident too. If the person on stage is calm, you'll be calm too. For me, I think that was the first sense of security or the first feeling I had of being a comedian. Honestly, it was then. After that, it was when I got to host a TV show called Occupation.
Two. That's exactly where I wanted to take you. At one point, you also had a huge spotlight in front of the public.
Exactly.
When you weren't not a comedian, but a host. How did that go for you? Was it necessary for your growth and to get yourself known as well? How did you handle that internally? You know what I mean? What's
funny is that when they offered me at the time, to put things in context, in Quebec, Occupation Double is a dating reality show. So there's a side to it that's a little, I don't know if a bit cheesy. Back then, there was something a little, people could easily make fun of that show. But it was a show that was hugely successful. And then the show had taken a 4-year break. And now it was the return of Occupation Double. And they offered me.
You were the host?
But then they offered me to host it. But at that time, I wasn't known at all. I didn't even understand why they were offering it to me. And the first thing I did at the beginning was to think about it. And I refused. At first, I said no.
Thank you. That's a funny kind of imposter syndrome.
One night, I was hosting a comedy night. It wasn't the one I used to host in Montreal. It was another one. There were 450 people in a big, beautiful bar, and it was going really well, and I was so happy. Then I got off stage, and I was listening to the comedian who was on stage, listening to the laughter, and I was just like, I feel so good. I don't need anything more. So I don't need to go host on TV. I'm a comedian. What I want to do is perform shows.
But it's amazing to experience what you're describing. Exactly. Once in your life, even just once, to say, why would I go there? I'm happy here.
Exactly. So I turned it down, and they came back to me saying, no, we really want it to be you. What can we do to make it work? And what that did as well is that it just pushed my thinking further. I realized why I didn't want to do it. And that's when I realized that I was afraid. I was afraid of what people would say. I was afraid of what other comedians would say if I hosted that show. And my father told me something that really helped me. He told me, a bad project can't destroy a good person. If you do it while being yourself, there's really no danger.
It's wonderful for a father to give his son advice like that. Truly.
It really helped me. And that's when I realized, like, let's go for it. Let's try. And I think one of the things, too, that made me hesitant was that I felt like since the beginning of my career, everything that had happened to me, I had gone out and gotten it myself.
You were in control of it. That's what you were saying earlier. I set goals for myself that I can control.
Right?
That's kind of it.
Exactly. And there I felt like I was being given
You were stepping out of your comfort zone.
Well, also I was being given a shortcut. It was like they were telling me, you can cut here and success is just right there. I almost felt like I was cheating. Whereas I think if they're offering me this, it's because you
won.
I deserved it.
You worked for it.
Exactly. And the fact that I refused made the show's production take me seriously right away. And they gave me a lot of freedom to the kind of hosting I was going to do on the show. Normally, reality shows in Quebec at that time, the hosting was very serious. It was very serious what was happening on the show. For me, I would say I want to respect the contestants. I will never look down on the contestants. That being said, what happens on the show for me isn't serious. I
see
clearly. I was able to add a bit of humor and a little second degree to the show. In the end, I got caught up in the game. I had so much fun. And that indeed...
Your fame exploded at that moment. You did that for 4 years?
6 years.
6 years?
6 to 16, yeah.
And at some point, you decided to leave.
Yes.
Why was that? Did you want to get back on stage? Did you want to do your shows again? Rewrite?
No, actually, what happened was it was always in the fall. So it was always 3 months in the fall. So for my first 3 seasons, I was juggling between... For 9 months, I was on stage in Quebec, touring all over. Then for 3 months, I was on Occupation Double. Then after that, the pandemic hit, and I was lucky enough to keep hosting OD, as we call it in Quebec, for 3 more seasons. But at some point, for me, once again, I think I'm someone... It goes back, I think, to sports, where I'm a guy who likes a challenge. And when I feel like I've mastered something, it interests me less. And not that I had mastered it, hosting, but I felt... Never did I think it would be a project I'd do for 20 years. I always took it one season at a time. I had a lot of fun. It made a lot of sense for me to host it. I tried to bring as much humanity as I could to that show. Then there came a moment when I was like, this is so much fun because we were doing this. It's a show that's filmed overseas. I hosted in Bali, in South Africa, and all that. But it only airs in Quebec. When you're in South Africa with a crew of 60 people, it's tough. And when they offer you another season, it's hard to say no. I told myself, okay, I'll have to make a decision before leaving for the destination about when I would stop hosting. So before my 6th season, I had written my second show, Finn, which is on YouTube right now. When I wrote that show, I really liked the story I was telling. I told myself, okay, this is going to be my last season. At the Ode Finale, I announced my tour, and then we went on tour. And that's what I did. And I was really at peace. I really felt like, I saw this through to the end. And when they offered me the show, I was 25 years old. I left at 31. I think I got it at the right time in my life. But even then, I was like, it's still a dating reality show. I want to do something with a little more substance. I'm not above that show. Not at all, not at all, not at all. It brought me so much. Yes.
Your acknowledgements along this journey.
Absolutely. But I was ready to do something else.
So explain to us now So I saw it yesterday, actually, while watching the video of your show on YouTube, that you're getting back on stage after a 1.5 year break. But I'd like you to explain to the people listening to us how you build a show. We were just talking about work earlier. So even when you improvise, there's a huge amount of work behind it. I discovered that, your notes, your notebooks, the yellow sheets, the white sheets. Honestly, it's amazing to see. It's really well filmed too. And on top of that, it's great to actually see the backstage. What happens behind the scenes? People think the guy just gets up there and improvises. No, actually, no. No.
That's not it. I think that over time, my creative process has changed.
You can really see that you have mastered your creative process. People might also imagine that you're given scripts that are all written out and that you just... No.
That's not it.
Honestly, I was surprised.
Well, that's nice of you. But no, it's very personal. So for the shows, it's always me who writes them from A to Z. And when we say write, it's not always with pen and paper. A lot of things happen on stage for me. So my instinct often, what happens?
You're supported by the...
Yeah, well, often I'll have notes, ideas that I want to work on. And then, let's say on the way to the comedy club, sometimes during the day, I'll try to write about the topic or talk out loud to myself while recording on a given subject. That's when I find things, it's like over time, my process has become more blurry. When I started, everything was written out to the letter, and I would do exactly what was on the page. Over time, I realized that my instinct on stage is very strong. Sometimes I can even surprise myself by telling jokes that are way funnier than anything I could have written. Often it's like a middle ground between whether it's written or not written at all, and leaving room for...
You give yourself a bit of freedom to let yourself go.
And after that, for my last show, there was a bit about hiking that came up. Then once I had that bit, I was like, okay, I think I know what the show is. Because I was talking about the fact that I didn't like hiking, but that's an old story. But in my own life, at the time I was writing that, I was a trail runner. I knew I was like, I think, and a story often, that's what it is. It's a character who changes. I was like, that's it, that's the story. How did I change? How did I go from someone who didn't want to go hiking to a trail runner? That was the story of my last show. And now at the point where I am in writing the next one, I'm really, really at the beginning. So I haven't found it yet.
So that's it, exactly. Actually, your process is that you go perform in venues. It allows you to test things, and all of that leads you somewhere in the end to having a show.
Exactly.
Where you'll go on tour.
Exactly. So basically, let's say tonight I'm performing at Sacré Comédie in Paris. I'm doing just 10 or 15 minutes of material. So there are 5 or 6 comedians on the lineup. It's the same when I perform at Le Bordel Comedy Club in Montreal. There are 5 or 6 of us. So we come with our notebooks, our ideas. We come to test out ideas. So then I test out a 10 or 15 minute set. But when that 15 minutes is good enough, well, then I can set it aside and work on another one. When I have 45 minutes, I can book myself, maybe a solo venue, and say that I'm going to do an hour. I'll have my 45 minutes. That's almost ready. And then there's another 15 minutes I can test out in between. That's my own process. There are others who work.
Yes, it's personal.
But for me, that's how it is. It's a happy mix of writing, and a lot of it happens on stage. So when I took a year and a half off, a year and a half break, when I took my sabbatical, I didn't write any jokes for a year and a half, and I didn't come back with 100 pages of writing. I lived my life, I traveled, I took vacations, and then when I booked my show again, and which you saw in the YouTube episode, which is available, that's when I forced myself to write and see what stories I've absorbed.
For a year and a half as well, yes. Of course, of course. So you're talking about work, inspiration, taking notes. For me, I make the connection with endurance, ultra endurance. It's true that after 2022, the Ironman events came along. We can see that you've done a lot of things. You also did the UTMB in Mont Tremblant last year.
Yes.
Then how do you use endurance sports to inspire yourself or to write? My question is, when you go running for hours, when you cycle for hours, we'll also talk about your incredible crossing of Canada. Do you get ideas? Does it generate inspiration for you after an hour, 2 hours, or several hours of effort? Your mind tends to wander a bit. At that point, do you sometimes get ideas, or do you stop to write them down, or not at all? Is it actually a moment you dedicate to disconnecting from your work?
I think at first, let's say when I think about, it's rare that I write down ideas while I'm doing sports. I think the exercise that leads me to create is the exercise of being present, of being in the moment. And to work that presence during training, while running and all that, to zone out, to think about nothing but what you're doing, to be in the environment you're in. When I was running the Paris Marathon, all I kept repeating to myself was observe, absorb, hear, listen, feel, be here. And in my head, it's the same thing. It's the same exercise when I'm trying to write jokes and when I'm on stage.
That's what I was going to say. What you're describing is probably one of the qualities of a comedian, being able to sense the room and immediately pick up on the right moment.
Exactly.
I think
that it's more on that level that my sensitivity and presence come into play. That's really what I'm trying to work on. Patience to the process. I think it's more about the big ideas that I learn, which I can translate on stage. So patience. Taking 3 months to be able to do 2.5, 3 marathons. If I want to have half an hour of material, taking 3 months to develop it, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. But at the same time, there have been times when, especially on a bike, I find there's something I like about cycling where you kind of float, you're a bit higher up. I find that your perspective is different. You can also kind of drift off in your thoughts, which means that sometimes it's happened to me. Sometimes I tell myself, okay, well, I could rehearse, things like that. That hasn't happened to me in the last 6 months because obviously it was winter. But now back in Quebec with the songs, maybe I could try a bit more, try to write some jokes. But otherwise, it's a bit more about the mindset. It's really the mindset that I work on a lot, I find, in sports, which I can then translate onto the stage.
It's interesting to hear your philosophy on that. I'd like us to focus on the 2024 season or year, where in fact you're in the middle of a tour. 16 dates, I think, or 18 dates in Canada.
17
dates in Canada. And you say to yourself, actually, we're going to do it, but I'm going to do it by running and cycling. That is to say 7,600 kilometers, 71 days. My question is simply why, actually. You could just say already it's super demanding to do all those dates during that period. You need to be focused. You need to be rested. But you said to yourself, actually, we're going to cross Canada.
Yes. You see, my first tour, when you went to see the Canadians at the Bell Centre, my first tour, I ended it at the Bell Centre. So in 2020, in January 2020, I did a show in that stadium in Montreal, 10,000 people. And at the time, I had long hair and I had taken on the challenge of getting my head shaved. So we raised funds for a cause in Quebec. You
must have made a lot of guys jealous with your hair. That must be incredible. You had hair that was gorgeous.
Yes, exactly. And then we shaved my head at the end of the show and we donated almost $25,000 to Lucan, which is a foundation that helps families and children who unfortunately are affected by illnesses. So that
was how, sorry, I'm interrupting you, but how do you get up in front of 10,000 people? Explain to the people watching us, what is it? The mindset in those seconds before me, I have a Physiovélo episode. Before going on stage, 10,000 people, Physiovélo episode.
You see, it comes back to what I was telling you a moment ago about being present. I remember that day, the mental preparation was almost as important as the physical or creative preparation. That is to say, the show was written. It was the 208th performance. The show was written, I knew it like the back of my hand. But what I prepared in the weeks before, especially the week before, was listening. There were specific interviews I wanted to listen to, specific music I wanted to listen to.
Now, please listen.
I wanted to make the most of that day. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be happy. I didn't want to be...
Not stressed. You didn't want to get stressed, actually.
I'm thinking about to the soccer players who play in the Super Bowl or the World Cup. If you end up in the final, everything is there to stress you out, but it was your dream.
To play. It's your dream, actually. You can't control it.
It's impossible. You also can't not have fun. Of course, you have to be stressed, but you also have to have fun. And so that's what I was telling myself. I have to make the most of it. I have to be present now. Like you
were saying too, you control it. You know your show by heart. That's it. It's nothing but pleasure. People are kind. People come for you too.
Exactly. But what's hard is that once you're on stage, it goes by so fast because you still have a show to deliver. You have to perform it. You have to do it well. What was cool was that since I was getting my head shaved on stage, afterwards there was a musical artist who sang. That's the moment I remember the most because at that point I had nothing to do. I was just sitting there getting my hair shaved and I could observe. And I remember that just like during the Paris Marathon, what I kept telling myself was,
enjoy it.
Take it in. Remember this. So that was a way, I think we wrapped up that first tour really well. So when I launched the tour at the end of the second show, which is called Finn, the whole time I was like, okay, how do we wrap up this tour? It's a show that's more personal, a little more intimate. So I was like, we've already done the Bell Center. That's not what I was looking to do again either. And for a long time, I had been looking for a way to do shows outside of Quebec because Canada, outside of Quebec, is mostly English speaking. There's New Brunswick, which has a lot of French speakers. But there are French-speaking communities all over Canada in the big cities. But there really isn't much of a bridge between French speakers and English speakers in Canada. And it's hard to organize on a tour, going to do shows in Vancouver or Calgary. You have to take a plane. It's expensive. And at that time, since I had already gotten into ultra, I was listening to a lot of podcasts and YouTube episodes about people doing crazy adventures. And then I came across there were 2 or 3 podcasts I was listening to about people crossing countries by running or by bike. And during one of the podcasts, that's when it clicked for me. I was on the stationary bike doing a Zwift training session in my gym. Then I had the idea, I was like, I'm going to do shows in English Canada or in French, but I'll get there by running and biking. I stopped my workout. I felt dizzy.
The spark, actually.
The spark. I got off the bike and I was scared of myself because at that moment, I knew I was going to do it, even though it was just the first idea. Then I told myself, I'm not going to talk about it right away because it's kind of a crazy idea.
That's what I said again. How do you present that to your team?
Exactly. But I sent a voice message to my team saying, hey, I had this idea. I'm sharing it with you right away, but I'm going to sleep on it. It's possible we'll never talk about it again either. And in the end, all week, I was obsessed with that idea. I couldn't think about anything else. I started calculating, okay, how many kilometers is it? What does it look like from one city to another and all that? At that time, too, I hadn't done it yet. When I was organizing it, I hadn't done my Ironman yet. So I had just gotten my bike. I wasn't even a cyclist yet. And so I wasn't really aware of the distances and all that. I really got used to the distances, Ironman. And when I did my Ironman, that gave me a better idea in terms of time. Okay, how many kilometers?
It gave you a reference point?
Yes. And I saw how long it took me to recover. The recovery went really well. So then I was able to adjust the route a bit.
But you added running on top of that, meaning there was the cycling. With cycling, you can cover a lot more kilometers much faster than running, but you add what you mentioned at the very beginning of the episode. It's a tough sport where there's impact. You actually add that into your tour.
What also makes me laugh is that most of the cyclists I talked to about this project, everyone told me, just do it with me.
That's already amazing.
Exactly. But I was like me, I'm really a
runner.
like it. I'm a runner and a cyclist. I really consider myself both. For me, it's important that there are both. The way I set it up was that I would leave each city. Let's say I left from Montreal and was heading toward Quebec City, which is about 300 kilometers away. On the first day, I would run 50 kilometers. That was my first day of traveling. The next day, I would get on the bike and I would complete the distance by bike. For Montreal to Quebec City, for example, I did a big day on the bike and then I arrived in Quebec City. But if you take, say, Vancouver to Calgary, that's the Rockies. So in Western Canada, which is beautiful, that's 1,200 kilometers between the two cities. So 50 kilometers of running and 1,150 kilometers of biking that I did over 5 days. So we built it like that over 2.5 months. Then when I arrived in a city, the next day I always had a day off. The day after that, it was the show. And the day after the show, we would set off running.
A whole team accompanied you.
Yes.
So you elaborate in detail in one of the videos how this project was successfully brought to life. I specifically took note of the nickname Captain, Good Mood.
There
was someone on your team who said, there you go. You can tell that the team is important to you in your projects.
Absolutely.
That you like doing it, but you also like bringing people along with you.
Absolutely. The classic saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go as a team.
That is exactly right.
And I think that here, the hockey player in me, the American football player too, I think I'm a good team player. I'm a good team member. And that's something I think that I missed a little bit on stage. Stand-up comedy is something very solitary. After that, you can have your touring team, but in sports, I really find that, again, with my videographer, with my manager. So on the Canadian tour, we had a great team. And it was also unique because you invite friends to cross Canada at 25 to 30 kilometers per hour in an RV. It's
not
that glamorous, but it was an amazing experience. It taught me so many things, especially there. I was already in love with cycling, but crossing the country by bike.
Crossing your own country is extraordinary.
It's extraordinary. It's a means of transportation that I find I understand. In my mind, it's an extremely simple way to be deeply happy.
What did you learn about yourself? Because you inevitably learn something when you set off like that for more than 70 days crossing a country. You see sunsets, sunrises, you meet people. People probably came out to meet you, to ride or run with you.
The
connection with your teams, as you mentioned, it's a shared life. What did you learn? Did it already change you?
I think so. I think one thing that I wanted to work on during the Canadian tour and that I managed to work on during the Canadian tour, there are two things. Delegating. I have a friend who traveled across countries. He's totally crazy. And he told me, he was like, go, stop. The day you leave, you're no longer in control. Give everything to your team. At first, I tried really hard to control everything. So learning to trust, to delegate. But the thing I think I worked on the most was being proud of myself. That was something I really struggled with before. I think I was afraid of getting a big head. It's always been something for me. I'm always afraid of inflating my ego. Also, the fact that I get a lot of attention in my life as a comedian, as a TV host. You know, even now, my YouTube channel, I'm like, I pay a guy who runs faster than me to film me while I'm running. So I'm like, I'm totally being egomaniacal and ridiculous. So, but what I noticed, there was a moment I remember out in Western Canada, actually, on the bike, there was a moment of grace. The
famous flow state, that's what it's called? Yes, exactly.
Completely. Where I realized that we were all there, partly thanks to me, thanks to my intensity, which sometimes I find is too much, thanks to the fire. That's inside me. And sometimes I think maybe I should tone it down. That fire a little bit. And Charles, whom you mentioned earlier, the captain of Good Vibes, who was part of the team, he often told me, we don't want you to put out that fire, Jay. That's what makes it. You are who you are, and look at what you're making us experience. Just talking about it gives me chills. It was a moment when I was proud of myself and I tried to accept the love that was being sent my way. We were doing a fundraiser for mental health research. We managed to raise over $150,000.
Douglas, that's it.
The Douglas Foundation. Exactly. The Douglas Foundation. It's crazy. It's incredible that yes, people gave so much. I crossed the country, but it's the people who donated, and obviously it resonated with them.
It spoke to them.
That's what we were doing. I think the thing I've worked on the most is coming to terms with being proud of myself. And being proud of yourself doesn't mean you're getting a big head.
After all, it's also about your journey. It's also your journey, the education you received, the connection to the land we talked about, which means that getting carried away, it's not really a family trait in a way.
Exactly.
So, and how do you get out of that? How do you come out of 67 days, 76 days of cycling, crossing a country, doing shows, and then at some point it all stops? We were talking about the marathon earlier. Now we're a few days after the marathon and we were talking about endorphins. But this is different because every day you give yourself another boost, you experience a state of flow, you see a beautiful country, and then it all stops.
The days I found the hardest during the Canadian tour were the days off. And I think it's maybe a chemical imbalance in my brain from always being in the process of accomplishing something, of
discovering, seeing, meeting people. Exactly.
And then when you do nothing, you feel like you're useless. And I didn't know how I was going to feel after the Canadian tour. And that's the reason why I gave myself the luxury of a sabbatical. Also, so I wouldn't run away from all those feelings and not just jump right into something else and not immediately say, okay, well, another project.
Was it a feeling you sensed inside yourself, or did you say to yourself, okay, now I need to not take a break because you're fed up? No, take a break because you feel like there's something else that's going to come out.
Exactly. A feeling of, I don't know. I think that before the Canadian tour, I had the clarity to tell myself, I have no idea how this project could change my life. Just in case, I'd rather have the space to absorb it, even if it means just coming back, writing a show afterwards, and it'll be great. But I think the sabbatical gave me some perspective. A
step back.
Exactly. And that allowed me to absorb all of it and realize, okay, wait, this project, there's a before and after the Canadian tour for me. Because it was the project that resembled me the most. That's when Ultra Humorist really took on its full meaning. I've been a sports fanatic since I was a kid. After that, when I became a comedian, sports, it wasn't hidden, but it was just for me. And I prioritized comedy. And then during the Canadian tour, I would get around by bike and by running to go do shows. That was me. You
were also fully embracing who you were.
Exactly.
It's part of your DNA. Sports are part of your DNA. So you don't want to set it aside anymore. Like you said, I totally understand.
Exactly. And that's when the sabbatical, at first I was like, okay, what do I do? How do I come back from this?
Did you expect that when you started this project, telling yourself we're going to cross the country running, cycling, doing shows, and then start over? Did you expect it would trigger that in you?
Never. For me, in my mind, it was really like,
you do that and then you move on to something else and keep going.
It's the end of the tour. It's going to be cool. And after that, I go back to my life. I'll write another show and I know who I am. But I loved crossing the country so much. I absolutely loved biking so much. It took a long journey of 380 kilometers to finally get to Toronto at midnight, wearing just a small headlamp. I loved the encounters we had. I loved how I felt. I loved the stories people told me. I loved the message it sent. It became so much bigger than me.
Actually, you received quite a lot of things.
And beyond my expectations. For me, I was like, hey, if we manage to raise a little bit of money and if my mom is happy at the end, that's cool, you know? And in the end, so many people came to run with us. It was incredibly moving. And that's where I think it opened the door to what I'm doing now on YouTube. That's when 6 months later, I was like, I'm going to start on YouTube and I'm going to share what I do because that's what I do. Even when I was on sabbatical, I would go running between things, then I'd walk around and all that. So that's when I started deciding to show what I do on a daily basis. And the shows remain, and I'm going to keep telling stories, but it opened the door. The sabbatical allowed me to take the time to turn the ship around and to realize, well, I'm not above television. Maybe I'll do TV again. But I think the best channel to talk to people is YouTube. To be 100% free, to choose my projects, my challenges. So I think the Canadian tour led me to YouTube. And then YouTube brought me here today to run the marathon and just to try things, to become a student again, to become once more,
To learn, like you said, to learn.
to learn.
Exactly. In 2024, our paths crossed because you signed up for the S-Cross Quebec 500 kilometer back then.
Yes,
And then coming out of the tour, you were in fact extremely tired. So you preferred, which I understand. Of course, after covering so many kilometers, you needed to rest. And then the following year, there was also this desire to go run on the trails with trail running. And then the marathon. At what point, because here we're talking about ultra endurance, so is a marathon considered ultra endurance? You finished in under 3 hours, you did it. Your goal for you, is a marathon considered ultra endurance?
I think that since I started running, and especially since I started with ultra almost right away, or nearly so, in the sense that I moved up to ultra quickly, people started saying things to me like, oh, I only run 3 kilometers, but what you do is way more intense. I don't know how you do it. And in my mind, I'm like, what really excites me is pushing my own limits. That's what I love. It's that zone where your limit is here and you try to push it further. My father, who started running after my Ironman, and last year at Christmas, his challenge was to run for an hour. It wasn't
It's about distance. That's already ultra, actually. I get it.
for him, that was his
Ultra. And
I've always believed in that.
it's very personal, actually. We say ultra because we immediately set a distance. That's
It
no, like you said, running for an hour, for me, that's ultra. I mean, it's already a challenge,
right.
I get it. For some, cycling 50 kilometers is a challenge.
That's it. It was the same for me. The Canadian tour, yeah, I crossed the country, but I did it little by little, piece by piece. And if for you, pushing your limits means trying to run your first kilometer or buying yourself a bike and just having fun, for me, yes, the marathon. After that, if we're talking technically, no, the marathon isn't technically an ultra. But for me, running a marathon in under 3 hours was pushing my limits. So yes, it counts. For me, it's like the ultra mindset. It's just about being a student, trying things out, juggling all of it, doing things like exactly crossing the country was mostly by bike. And then I've never done a bike race, but I really enjoyed riding for a long time, riding far, seeing the country, the feelings you get, going past 100, 150, 200 kilometers. It's not the same. Your body rewards you with sensations and a sense of well-being that's fascinating that you can't get if you only ride for half an hour. It's something else. It's
not the same, I understand. I understand it's not the same. And in that context, precisely why a marathon? Because you could have said, all right, now it's the UTMB, that's the goal, it's Chamonix, it's the 100-mile sucker. So what was it? It's
that last year, me too, actually, during the Canadian tour, I had such an amazing time that now I don't just want to collect race bibs. I love races, I love training, but what I love most is the lifestyle that comes with it. I love training, I love doing
sports.
We were talking before recording that you did the Tour de France by bike. For me, I've set that in my mind. I'm like, I'm going to have to do that one day. Not everything is just a race. I also want to be able to stop whenever I feel like it. If I see a nice cafe or a beautiful moment.
Always that present moment you were talking about.
That's
kind of it. It's the number of times you're riding, you see a beautiful spot and you think, actually right now I'd really like to stop. But no, I have to keep riding. People are waiting for me. My average speed, no.
That's it. I think once again, it's about finding balance. There are times for doing intervals. There are times to observe. I want to be careful. I also want to preserve the love I have for these sports. I don't want to get tired of it. The reason I changed is that last year was a season where, for the first time, I really dove in full time, truly into trail running. And then I told myself, okay, let's give it a try. So I did a 125-kilometer race in Quebec. It's very, very, very technical. So roots and rocks from start to finish. It was super intense. It took me 21 hours, a little over 21 hours to do it. That's another thing. And then I was like, oh, perfect, I did it. I'm going to do a 100-kilometer in Cape Town. And in the end, in Cape Town, I had really, really bad sensations. And I experienced my first DNF, did not finish. I dropped out of the race for the first time. And then that suddenly, once again, it messed with my head a bit because I was like, okay, well, now am I now someone who gives up?
How did you experience it?
That's what's funny. It's that when you do ultras, you have time to ask yourself questions just to make it to the next aid station.
Yes. Actually, it's like in ultras, the difference between a regular race, let's say, and an ultra, it's like when you run a race, you know that you win the race. When you cross the finish line in a sprint, the emotion is instantaneous. In an ultra, you know you're going to finish. So the emotions are shifted. You feel them before the finish line. Quitting is exactly the same.
Exactly. Or
that you ask yourself a ton of questions. So wait, but if I quit here, logistically, how do I get back?
how?
How do they come pick me up? So victory is delayed in ultra endurance, but quitting, having experienced it myself, quitting is also delayed. That is to say, you see it coming, you know. And that's hard to deal with too, because you think about your whole family, all the sacrifices that went into it, telling yourself, I'm just worthless, really.
Yes. And for me, it was the first time too. I was like, oh my God, deep down, I'm saying it publicly. And again, it comes back to, are you brave? Are you not brave? Are you embarrassing? Are you shameful?
Am I in the right place? Why do this?
Why am I doing this? I brought my videographer and all that, my friends, my team. Am I a total loser for bringing everyone to the other side of the world and then abandoning them? But what's beautiful is that you have time to deal with that on the trail. As long as you haven't given up, you have time to deal with all that, to absorb it all, and to realize, no, it's not shameful. And to reconnect with yourself and ask, okay, why am I doing this?
So not only is it not shameful, but also why are you doing this? Personally, I think it's good because it usually allows you to bounce back and put things back into perspective.
Exactly.
It also significantly assists you to comprehend the reasons exactly why. Because when you drop out, it doesn't just happen out of nowhere.
There is
always a reason. It's nutrition. It's an injury, maybe because of an insult. So in cycling, it could be a cleat, but it also allows you to try to understand. And generally you realize, now I don't know if that's the case for you or not, you'll tell me, but it had been lingering for a little while. It's probably something you hadn't resolved. Dropping out doesn't just happen like that.
No, exactly. Absolutely. And that's how it was. I think for me, my 125 was in September in Quebec, and the 100 kilometers in Cape Town was at the end of November. And the training between the two races went really well. But when I dropped out in Cape Town, that's when I realized I was like, mentally I was tired. Mentally, I didn't have much energy left. My body was in shape. But at that point, and I knew it when I decided not to finish. 10 days before the race, I was telling myself, we'll arrive as close as possible to the race to do it. 3 or 4 days later, but with a jet lag, I didn't sleep well in the days leading up to the race. I started the race, and right from the start, the sensations weren't good. When things start to go badly, you're like, wait, I don't understand. Everything was going well. But once again, quitting, I just don't have it in me. At the time, I was upset and disappointed, but that's when I reconnected with the fact that, okay, I think I still had 46 kilometers left to go when I dropped out. And I was like, the idea of continuing, it made me feel sick to my stomach. I was like, no, it's impossible. I'm going to drag myself the whole way. I'm going to die here. And that's not the reason why I do this. And I also don't think that I'm not someone who gives up. I think I went all the way. The last 9 kilometers between the last 2 aid stations, the fact that I set out again, once again, I try to tell myself that I'm proud of myself. Those last 9 kilometers were impossible. I could see the aid station at the end before giving up, and I was struggling to run to get there. It makes no sense how I dug so deep to get there, and I thought, okay, now I've reached my limit. The mistake was made. If I dragged myself to the finish, I would go through hell and get the reward. Now, I don't deserve the reward, so I have to live with the discomfort of quitting and take it in. What do I have to learn? Because I feel like if I had dragged myself to the end, people could have celebrated me in a certain way, like, wow, you worked so hard. But I'm like, I don't think I deserve that celebration. This time, I deserve to take a knee, to realign, and to be like, okay, wait, what's going on? And that's when I said, now I need to chill. After Capitan, I came to Paris for a week, ate ham and butter sandwiches, drank wine, chilled and relaxed.
I love that totally wrecked image.
After that, I went back home, relaxed in December, and I said, okay, let's change things up. Let's stir the pot.
So you really use that withdrawal to take a step back, actually. Exactly. And not be devastated, disappointed, telling yourself, this isn't for me at all. I'm quitting. I completely switched to something else. That's not it at all.
Not at all. No, not at all. And then I started asking myself some questions. What happened and what do I want to do? And that's when I decided, For the winter, I can't just jump right back into trail running. Let's go work on speed. Let's go run a marathon.
And so
That's what led me to the marathon, which is part of my preparation for the coming year, where I'll be going back to ultra trail running. But I didn't take the marathon lightly. I was all in on it. We did a proper marathon prep. We reviewed my nutrition. There were things that weren't working in my nutrition. I'm going to find solutions for that. My former coach was amazing. I loved him, Yves, who is an extraordinary running coach. But in the end, life led me to cross paths with Charles Castonguay, who is one of the best coaches in Quebec. And in the end, it just clicked. I thought, you know what? I'm going to change coaches. Let's shake things up. Let's start over.
So what did you tell him? Did you say, I just want to run a marathon, be a finisher, become a marathoner? Did you tell him, I want to run under 3 hours?
I'm going to run under 3 hours.
Why? Because under 3 hours, at least for me, I followed a lot of people in this marathon, and that was the goal for many. That is to say, it's really a badge among runners, among marathoners. Under 3 hours, it's like you said, you've run a marathon. Okay. The first question that comes right after is, how long did it take you? Exactly.
I think the 3 hour mark is a pretty well recognized milestone. And then I'm not a great...
Recognized because it's
still a
commitment.
Yes, a goal that is...
You have to train to get there.
Yes, it's a goal that's really not easy to achieve. Really not easy to achieve. But also, when I asked my coach, that was the idea I had in mind. I was thinking, I believe 3 hours is realistic. But I was also if he had told me, no, we doubt it, it's impossible because we've done the tests, we can do 2 at most, that's the whole deal. If he had told me something like 3:30, I would have listened to him. But when he told me something like, yes, 3 hours, that's really realistic, he was even more confident than I was.
That bound you somehow?
Somehow. It committed me. And I doubted myself throughout the whole training because I told myself, this won't be a sure thing. But in the end, it really went well.
So you were also supported on this project by Altitude.
Exactly.
I'd like to say hello to Catherine and Maxime, whom I met at the Altitude offices, which are gorgeous.
Great.
Gorgeous. Not very far away, there's NAC, which you can walk to with William. Let's say hello to him as well.
Absolutely.
So that's cool. Very good nutrition to support you in this project.
Extraordinary. For the marathon, that's all I used. The boost range, it worked. Perfect. Really, truly. I'm very grateful. I consider myself very lucky to work with these partners.
So you really took this seriously. You also went to get a bit of warmth before Paris. You went to Marseille to prepare.
See, that we learned in Cape Town. In Cape Town, I didn't want to arrive early. I told myself we won't make the same mistake again. We'll arrive at least 10 days before the race. So we arrived in Marseille.
You set up all the right conditions to achieve your goal. And how did you approach? I kind of have the answer now because we've been talking for an hour. So I'm starting to get a sense of who you are. I was going to ask you how you approached the marathon. Your answer will probably be, I lived in the moment.
Exactly.
No stress, just like going on stage. I'm just going to enjoy it, actually.
Exactly. Me, I think I've grown up my whole life with eczema. Yes.
Anxiety, stress.
Exactly. When I was a kid, people often told me, I was wondering, why am I doing this? Everyone would say it's because of your stress. I didn't really understand. As I got older, I realized I'm like, oh yeah, I think I look calm, but actually there's a lot boiling inside. It's like one of the biggest challenges I have in life, and I'm not complaining at all, but it's managing stress. And after different experiences, whether in comedy, television, or sports, I often noticed that my level of stress during preparation is too high compared to the enjoyment I get from it. And often, for example, in Quebec, there was a year when I hosted a televised gala, and I was very, very, very nervous during the preparation. And that night, it went so well that afterwards, I was like, I was too stressed and I didn't have enough fun. And this isn't the first time I've told myself that. And I was just like, I need to adjust that. The fact that now, during my marathon preparation, it happened to me again.
Too stressed?
In the heart of the storm, during training, a training session that isn't going very well. And then I realized being on the verge of tears in my car after my training because I didn't succeed and my legs hurt, I have to say, wait a minute, you're recreating the same thing as usual. Now, you need to reconnect with the enjoyment. You pushed yourself to your limit today. What a privilege. Ask your coach questions. Talk to your coach. See what's going on. Get some reassurance. I don't think I'm someone who lies to myself either. I was probably just tired. If I had been able to finish it, I would have finished it. I've completed 95% of my workouts. In the end, it meant that at the marathon, yes, there was the goal of going sub 3. But what I told my team the day I got the bib, thanks to campus coach Nico, running addict, who helped us get it. The day I got the bib in my emails, I wrote to my team and said, hey guys, we got it. We're going to Paris. Obviously, I'm aiming for this for you, but whatever happens at the finish line, I want to be proud of myself and we're going to have a good time. I think that the fact of I was sincere. I was always working in that direction to do whatever happens. I want to be proud of myself, having worked on my speed. And if this isn't the year I get the sub 3, it'll be another time.
Another time?
And in the end, I did it. So my parents were there. It was an exceptional day. And I feel like I connected with Paris throughout the whole race, that I was very, very, very present. So it was, once again, that's what I tried to work on as much as possible.
So when you're running, aiming for the goal of under 3 hours, but at the same time, you want to be in the present moment, does that mean that when you were running, what were you doing? Were you keeping an eye on your watch to check your pace? Or were you looking at the monuments? How did you juggle between, okay, I need to stay focused on my pace and my rhythm, but at the same time, I want to enjoy myself a little? Paris, you know?
Yep.
How did you manage that?
It's a lot of preparation beforehand. I write a lot in a journal. So it was that.
That's what I noticed. You don't have a crowd connected, actually. You know, you might think of the athlete as being super connected, but no, I've noticed in your shows, even here, you see, you don't have a watch. How did you manage your pace?
I only wear the watch when I run.
Only when you
run, when I have my bike. But you see, on the Canadian tour, the watt meter wasn't connected.
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily intentional. I didn't know how to connect it, I think, at the time. But in the end, it turned out to be a good thing because I was just like, I was really in tune with
my sensations.
I think that in a race, I would do things differently today. It was the same thing. I had my watch during the race and I knew exactly my heart rates, my sensations, the pace I wanted to go at. But one of the things I wrote most often in my notes before leaving, in the days leading up to it, was precisely to be energized by the city. Why am I coming to run? The Paris Marathon, it's not just anything. So to be energized by the history, by the people, by the energy of the place, by the other runners, by the volunteers, to be generous with my own energy as well, to give back what is offered to me. That's really what I kept telling myself. But after that, I knew that, let's say my heart rate had to stay below 160, at least until around the 35th kilometer. It was a bit more technical as a race. And I liked that. For me, the plan was clear and simple.
We can sense that there's actually a lot of mental preparation in your approach to your profession, to your sport. You can feel that. I don't want to say you talk to yourself a lot, but there's a lot of reflection on why you're doing this, how you're going to do it.
With whom you're going to do it. My parents think I ask myself too many questions.
No, but that's good because at least you know why you're doing things. You're not here by chance. You know what I mean? And actually, speaking of the city's energy, was there a moment when you went faster than your planned pace because you were carried along by the start, by the others, by the crowd, by the excitement as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. At the start, the planned pace was 4:10 per kilometer. But my coach told me, watch your heart rate and how you feel. Those are the 3 things you need to pay attention to. So I started off more around 4:04 per kilometer, and I was feeling really good and my heart rate was low. So I thought, for now, I think it's fine. Let's stay in these zones. But I was trying. I checked my watch at every kilometer. When it popped up, it told me what the pace was. Then I was like, okay, we're in the right zone. Stay relaxed. Then I passed the first half in 1:25. At that point, I was like, oh, that's actually a little faster than what we had planned. Am I burning through my reserves? But then I thought, I feel like I can maintain this pace.
Yeah, because 7 minutes is still quite a big difference.
Exactly. And finally, from the 35th kilometer on, that's when I started. Actually, a bit before that, my legs were starting to feel heavy, but my mind was so strong. And even though my quads were burning a bit, I wasn't slowing down.
You were able to keep it up? You were able to maintain the pace?
What I found interesting about the marathon compared to ultras is that sometimes in ultras, your quads start burning and then they hurt for more than half the day. During my 125K, my ankles were hurting. I hadn't even done 60 kilometers yet. And then night is coming. You can't see the end. When you're at 80 kilometers and moving at 3 kilometers an hour,
You do the math, you start overthinking, you think you'll never make it.
I will never make it. That's it. This is the rest of my life. Whereas now I'm like, oh my God, I only have 7 kilometers left.
So mentally, it's solid.
I have half an hour left. Mentally, you're able to push through. And then when you're in pain, I cramped up on my 41st kilometer. But I told myself, I only have 4 minutes left.
Yes, that's true.
Push. And then also, I knew it. I was like, I could walk and I'd still get the sub 3. Not quite, but not far off. So no, I liked it. So I was really energized by the place. And also to try, once again, like we've been talking about, it's my first marathon. It's special. I treated myself to the luxury of coming to do it in Paris, in an extraordinary city. It was about trying to squeeze out every drop that this human experience could offer me.
Are there any other marathons planned? Now that you've had a taste of it and you know the path to get there, is it Boston? Is it New York? Is it Berlin? You know, you have a medal that, I think it's the 7 marathons, I think.
The majors, there are 6 of them, I think.
That's right. And did you ever think to yourself, I'd really like to do Chicago, for example? Exactly. You did Paris, you achieved your goal, and now you're looking ahead to something else?
What's curious is I'm asking you...
Question, even though an hour ago I was telling you, are you...
enjoying it?
You need to make the most of it. Just use it.
Come on, what's next? No, but right now...
At the Driver's Cafe.
We talked a bit about the Quebec winter, which sometimes makes it a bit difficult to do ultras. So I really enjoyed doing marathon training at the beginning of the year, working on speed before working on endurance. And what wasn't part of the plan is that I'm also so new to the marathon world, I didn't know anything about it. But now, technically, with the time I got, I qualified for Boston. And Boston, which is like the most renowned marathon, once again, I'm like, what luck, what a privilege to have access to that. So I'm not going to take that lightly. Again, I still have to register, and sometimes the cutoffs are faster than expected. I don't know what. It's not at all certain that I'll be able to do it.
Is there a period during which you're qualified?
I have 2 years.
2 years, okay.
So 2027, 2028, we'll see. For now, I'm going to focus more on 2026, see what goals I have left this year, see about confirming them. But I loved running a marathon, and there will definitely be another one. But, you know, we were just talking about the Canadian tour, and just that it's like, I'm looking forward to getting back to, say, a cycling mindset. Work triathlons too. Since the Ironman, I haven't done another one. This year, I wanted to do one. In the end, it didn't work out. The urge to race, I know races will always be there, but adventures, sometimes they're like mirages. It's as if my sensitivity to what adventure do I want to do is very open. And I'm looking forward to finding it's that spark that's going to make me go, that's the next adventure. But yes, there will be another marathon in my life, that's for sure.
But regarding your show this year, are there any dates that are scheduled? Because right now we're talking about adventure, about competition, but how is your schedule for getting back on stage? Is it planned for 2026?
No.
Did you plan it by the quarter or perhaps by the semester?
Yes, actually, at first, when I started the year, specifically the video you saw, when I got back on stage, I was like, okay, I'm going to write a show. And during my marathon training, it'll be a bit less demanding. So I'll be able to write a lot and so on and so forth. And it didn't take long for me to realize, I was like, oh yeah, I'm much more tired in the evenings. So at some point, the shows were happening after 9 p.m. Then I told the booker at Le Bordel in Montreal, the comedy club called Le Bordel, I said, I can't do shows after 9 p.m. anymore. I'm sorry, I'm tired. So I guess I'm getting older. So in the end, the writing for the show slowed down a little bit. That's why I'm spending a bit more time in comedy clubs now. So I haven't announced any solo dates yet. But this year, actually, I've calmed down a bit too. There's no rush. I'm trying to be mindful of that because I'm ambitious, I'm a dreamer, and I love projects. But now I'm telling myself that I want to run the fastest race of my life and probably the longest race of my life in the same year. But if, on top of that, I want to write a show, that's starting to be a lot of things. I told myself maybe more like 2027 for a show. I would really like that.
Tell me what truly gets you excited. What exactly has been occupying your thoughts lately? Whether it's a grand new adventure, a competitive race, or a special event? What really excites you? It could be Boston. Is it the UTMB in Chamonix? Is there an event or an adventure where you tell yourself, that's it?
Or where is it?
Or do you just take things as they come?
A bit of both. a bit of both. I think that actually, I love races, but I really love adventures. So I'm looking forward to finding my next personal project, like the Canadian Tour, something tailor-made that I put together myself. And
You bring yourself along, you equip yourself.
exactly, that I'm really, really looking forward to doing again. After that, I know that I want to. Sometimes in the ultra world, there's also this whole thing about I want to be careful not to just keep increasing the distances because you could do that forever. That being said, I'm still in a process where I want to see how far I'm capable of going, not to find answers, just for the thrill of it. So I'd like to do the next step. I did a 125-kilometer trail run last year. I'd like to cross the 100-mile mark to see if that's something that excites me or not. I think I have a good temperament for ultra running. I think I'm pretty stubborn. And I like going to places where few people go. So for now, I'd like to do ultra running. The continent of Europe is a place where I am actively and consistently trying to expand my presence and develop my connections more and more. Especially the fact that the language, well,
Yeah, for sure.
so just as much it can push what I do on YouTube as much as on stage, and the idea of dreaming about a francophone career outside Quebec, that's going to
Be my next question, actually. Is there a desire? Are there projects that are starting to take shape?
There aren't any projects starting up, but for me, that's one of the reasons I chose the Paris Marathon. I was like, I want to come spend some time in France. I possibly want to meet people. I want to do shows here. I have several French comedian friends that I know. I have contacts. I've performed in Marseille. I'm going to perform a bit in Paris, but no solo show yet. But now that's what I'm dreaming about. I think what we're doing on YouTube really connects with the French audience. All it takes is for the French to hear about it. I say the French, but I mean French speakers outside of Quebec. I'm really open-minded. If one day I can finally add more show dates in places like France, Belgium, Switzerland, and across Africa, that would truly be the most incredible dream come true for me.
The ultimate dream. Maybe that's it. The project, I was telling you, what's the project?
Maybe that's it. When that time finally comes, it is quite possible that I will journey all across Europe.
By bike. You know that Race Cross Quebec this year we're launching at 2,500 kilometers. I saw that, which goes to Gaspésie. So tell us about this region that cyclists are going to discover.
It's extraordinary.
We're talking about Bromont.
Yes,
Gaspésie returning through Quebec City.
I saw that. It's extraordinary. Have you ever been to Gaspésie? Never.
Never.
I have a race in Gaspésie in June.
That's why the reason I created this concept is also to go and discover new places.
Right?
When you ride a bike, for me, it's the route that makes me want to go to an event or not. I want to discover new things, not just go around in circles.
Exactly.
And then I said to myself, when we talked with David and Jesse, who are my coordinators living in Montreal, right away I told them, guys, does Gaspésie fit into the 2,500? They told me, yeah, it fits.
Of course, I
Didn't even discuss it. I just said, let's go.
Curiously enough, my father's family comes from Gaspésie. So both of my paternal grandparents grew up in Gaspésie. So I do have a certain attachment to it. I don't consider myself a Gaspésien because my father grew up in Montreal, but my roots are from Gaspésie. It's a place where time is different. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Magdalen Islands in Quebec,
which are
150 kilometers away from the shore. It doesn't make sense that people actually live there. The islands move at their own pace. It's truly, truly beautiful.
Time's warped. That's what I remember.
Yes, absolutely. There's island time, and Gaspésie has that too. When you arrive in Gaspésie, life is good. People are generous, kind, and welcoming. The smell of the sea is truly, truly unique. You'll probably be by the sea the whole time. So, it's kind of you have Haute Gaspésie, it curves around at the end, then you have Percé. Yes,
it's
that you have Percé Rock, and then you have Lower Gaspésie. And it's like two different atmospheres. It's not the same thing. But for me, it's a region. But the regions of Quebec, honestly, I'm a good promoter because it's
true that Quebec is 3 times bigger than France.
That's right.
But on the other hand, there are far fewer of you in terms of, so just imagine the space. I've had the chance to go there several times and to go up, especially to the north above Tadoussac, all that area. But there's so much, it's all nature.
It stretches as far as the eye can see. What is truly crazy is that even as a Quebecer, The vast and remote northern half of Quebec is a place that you can.
Could you please head over there?
It's an adventure. Honestly, I know friends who have worked there as doctors. It's another Quebec that I haven't seen yet and that I dream of seeing one day. But you have some extraordinary regions. You know, you leave from Bromont, which is in the Eastern Townships. The Eastern Townships are magnificent. It's forests, it's lakes, it's rolling hills. It's really, really beautiful. Each village has its own uniqueness. After that, well, there's Gaspésie, you know, obviously Quebec City, the whole Quebec region, we're spoiled. But Gaspésie, you're going to love it there. You know, the tour of Gaspésie, that's something I want to do by bike.
And another special thing is that you have trails there that are just perfect. That is to say, sometimes your trails are even in better condition than the roads because you have such harsh winters, and sometimes the trails. So that's why it's an event that mixes, I wouldn't say gravel, but well-packed trails and pavement. And it's actually the only event in our series where you can ride both on trails and on pavement. Maybe one day we'll have the chance to see you in action. That's
for sure. Absolutely, for sure. In my mind, it's an event that as soon as it fits into my schedule, I have to do it. Because to relive, especially say 2,500 kilometers of cycling in a short period of time,
they'll have a maximum of 10 days to do it.
Really, really looking forward to experiencing it alone.
Actually, I had a question. I was just thinking about it again. When you crossed Canada after it was over, how long did it take before you put on your running shoes again or got back on your bike?
What's fascinating is that my love for this sport actually grew during the tour. There,
I never felt like quitting biking or that I was done. No.
On the contrary, my bike felt like a pair of slippers to me. I was more comfortable on my bike than in hotel beds. So, yeah, the love. Well, I think that's also something I really try to protect. I don't want to get tired of this sport. I really want to preserve my love for these sports. Once again, it comes back to listening to how I feel and saying, yeah, take some time off. But after the Canadian tour, I was so in an ultra mindset that I would go out and do 140 to 150 kilometers all alone because I was completely in that mindset. Then there's cycling. Since the Canadian tour, cycling is still part of my training. I cycle every week all the time. Amen. Going on long bike rides now, it is
something else entirely.
I miss it.
It's different because doing 50 or 70 kilometers regularly and doing 140 or 200, the pace is different and it works your mind in a different way.
Yeah, last year we did a 330 kilometer ride. We left from our place near Montreal to go to Lac Beauport, which is near Quebec City, to take part in a trail race there. And it was an extraordinary day, but it was a really tough day. It's really weird, but it was really...
I was asking you about the burnout you might have had from cycling, because for me, when I did the United States afterwards for a year, I didn't touch my bike.
That is to say...
that I did the 5,000 kilometers in 11 days.
That's it. You did it quickly.
Yes, I did it quickly. But afterwards for a year, I didn't touch my bike. Yes.
That's it.
So it's just that, in fact, I didn't want any more constraints. It's that as part of my preparation, a very strict preparation, I was working at Apple at the time, and I had to be on the sales floor at 8 a.m. So I would go train at 5 in the morning or I would go train afterwards. So everything was timed because when I finished my training, I knew exactly how much time I had to take the subway and get to work. And I just didn't want any more constraints, actually. I wanted to go train telling myself I'm going to train or I'm just going to ride without having to think that I need to be back at a certain time.
And that
took a year to come back.
After that, once again, when I talk about preserving the love for the sport, I feel like maybe that year was necessary because if you had gotten back on your bike 2 weeks later, maybe 6 months after that, you would have said, that's it, I'm done with cycling.
At that point, I was really listening to myself.
Exactly.
That's right.
And that's what I mean by preserving it. I think you did the right thing. You crossed a country in 11 days with crazy elevation and you pushed yourself. And here we're talking about those 11 days, but you're telling me about the training sessions. That's how it is for me too. Whether it's the Paris Marathon or any race I do, I remember. When I think about my Ironman, I remember the whole summer that came before it and all those sacrifices and everything else. So yes, I think you did the right thing. For me, it's more like I have a desire. I see that running is very present. I've had more running goals, but now I'm really, really looking forward to having a running goal.
I could go for a run.
Oh yeah, that's good.
No, but it's true. Listening to yourself is super important. And I didn't want to have that constraint. But it's true that with a marathon, you only see the tip of the iceberg, but there's all the preparation behind it. And indeed, when preparing for the United States, it was 6 very intense months. And what I really like about these preparation phases, that's what I often tell myself. Sometimes you're tired. Sometimes you just don't feel like going. Sometimes it's tough. It's raining. You have to tell yourself you'll thank yourself later.
Exactly.
Do it because you'll thank yourself. And indeed, when you're on the bike and you get into those flow states, lost in the middle of a country, you tell yourself, in the end, I did the right thing. And it's true that the flow state, it's that little thing you manage to reach. Once you've experienced it, it's really something special. You see, it makes you want to come back. It brings you back. And I've worked on this. I've talked with specialists. And actually, it's a state you can't trigger at will. A lot of people think, I'm going to trigger it, the flow state. No, actually, no, you can't. It comes with fatigue after a certain amount of effort. So actually, you can't trigger it voluntarily. But on the other hand, when you're in the zone, it's really, really cool. So
that is cool.
I hope we'll have the chance to ride together someday. That's it for now.
Most definitely.
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it, Arnaud. Thank you so much for your preparation. It's so generous. Thank you for having me.
The more I prepared for this episode, the more I put pressure on myself, telling myself, actually, I'm having someone really famous on. It's been a long time indeed, but I really appreciate you taking the time to come on a small podcast like mine, which isn't sponsored. I've been doing this for 5 years now just for fun because I love meeting people like you. And every time I meet a guest, I ask myself, what am I going to take away from this? You see, what is this guest going to bring me, or how am I going to grow through their story? And what I'll remember from you is live in the present moment. Enjoy, don't stress, live in the present moment.
If that's what you take away from this interview, then it's truly a success. I'm truly honored, Arnaud. Thank you for taking the time.
A big thank you.
You're so kind, and I'm eager to ride. If it's not in Gaspésie, it will be in
France. It'll be somewhere else. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Have a safe trip back.